Hey guys, quick midday update. It is Monday, November 5th, and this is a quick midday update from the Tribeca Trade Group. Okay, so what do we got going on here? It's the first hour and a half of the day, and really so far what I see, actually the VIX is starting to come in here a little bit, but really what I see is just basically value outperforming growth. So I want to show you how that's showing through in a couple places. But look at the Dow stocks; they're up 60, almost 70 basis points today. This is a day where the Qs are underperforming, doing the exact opposite, down 60 or 70 basis points. Some of that is Apple, which is down again today, but just overall growth. If you look across the group and look across some particular names, you'll see that. But what's really unusual here, or a little bit different here, is the Dow, has not. Well, I should say it did break the 200-day moving average, but it reclaimed it last week. So here's where the strength is. And if you break this apart, there's a couple different ETFs that you could look at, value versus growth. And I have a couple of them up here. But this is IWD versus IWF. You can see the tickers up here. This is a chart with large cap value names in the numerator and large cap growth names in the denominator. And you can see what's going on here for the last couple weeks. Well, basically, it's been for most of October. Value has outperformed growth, but look at where value names are actually above the 200-day moving average. So it's a little bit of a tale of two markets for the day. Depending on how you're positioned, you're either having a pretty decent day or a pretty poor day. And, we'll start with names. I'll just start to go over a couple names. And we'll start with J&J. J&J's up, let's see, up 1.1%. There is a VPOC up there. Procter & Gamble is up pretty decently today. That's also up about the same today. So these names are legging higher. So, it's if you're okay with taking some of these names for trades, again, you don't have to own these forever, but these are the names. And this has been basically what I've been an echo from what I've been saying last week is value names have the momentum to them. So I know it's a little bit difficult. Everybody wants to play the Amazon and the Facebook and so forth, because I see that's what people talk about on Twitter. But you see, just still, I think these names can go higher because people aren't really talking about them that much. I start to see it a little bit here and there from some people on Twitter, but I don't think it's like nearly at the saturation rate. I think finally people were talking about it towards the end of last week. Look at McDonald's moving up here, up 1.7%. So this is the story, and I focus a lot more. You see me tweeting about more about what's going up than what's going down. So this is what's moving up. I also, in terms of option activity, which, by the way, option activity hasn't really given you much of a hint for all these names. So, I hate to bash option activity, but it's really not giving any good signals in terms of the stocks that are moving down. I keep seeing more calls being bought and stuff that's going down. So, or stuff that's just not working. So we are seeing a couple small, I'm trying to observe where the risk appetite is right now. So, by the way, consumer staples are trying to break out too, because a lot of these names are the ones that are outperforming. And again, I think you can kind of pick individual names. But look at Deere. We've seen Deere. I just saw some more Deere calls go up. But I actually see a little bit of activity going up in the industrial space today, although Deere might be a material name. But this is now outside of the value area, and they're starting to pick apart November calls. And I've seen them now a couple times in Deere. So this is a little bit something different. Basically, you could watch the top of value, which is 143. You could also watch the recent highs. A name that I actually went long last week was Honeywell. That is a name that I think has been pretty beaten up. I took this name because it's due for a bounce, I think. So 1.4%, that swing trade is working pretty decently. Costco is another name that I think can do well in this environment. Spread, which I've got the final piece on. I actually added some outright calls this morning because I really slow this morning, but if you look at where it is, it's right at the 50-day moving average, trying to put in a W pattern. So we'll see where this closes today. I already kind of jumped in and got some names. Not every trade is a winner for me. I also bought a little. I went back into Square this morning on the dip. That's not working so far. Square reports this week, kind of looking for a run into earnings, but growth names from Friday, and it moved down. But I just thought it was being punished a little bit too much. So we'll see how that goes, and that's not going to be a long trade for me. that'll just be just looking for like a day trade bounce. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And people's watch list today, or I see a lot of a lot of posting on what's going on with Apple. Yeah, ID 190. So just flip this. You can see there's a virgin point of control down here, which coincides with the 200-day moving average. So I think this thing may be headed to 190. I'm not in it at all. I generally like to wait 3 days anyway when there's been a bad earnings report to kind of wash things out a bit. So we're getting there. And, if you're okay shorting, this has been a pretty good short. But, I saw a lot of retail traders kind of buy, as soon as they see Apple down, they buy it. I try to get away from that behavior. I don't just buy things just because they're going down. I look for really nice support. So I don't see that support until about 190, and that's probably where I would look to maybe start a position in it. So a couple other names. Yeah, so I do think Dow is pretty interesting. If you look at the industrials, which if we go to today's option activity, which as I've said has just not been giving too many great looks here. And most of the growth names, like there's a little bit of ALGN calls, but very, very small. Same thing with Grub, which saw some January calls as well. Note there was some SQQQ calls, meaning short the Qs. And if you take a look at the put activity, a lot of two-way. I could post a couple Apple call trades too, but I think the more aggressive trades are going up on the put side. But you could see Amazon land here a couple times on the put side. You could see Vive. You could see, I don't know if this Baidu trade is right because it did actually hit on the bid side, but just shows there's not really a big appetite for growth names right now. And overall, I think just to kind of watch the price action from the open, maybe buyers will step in here a little bit. But I think for the most part, we're still seeing distribution going on. We've mentioned overhead support in the SPYs and the Qs. That's a term that you're going to hear a lot about, but it is what it is. We'll see if the best thing I think that could happen here is we consolidate. I just have a tough time thinking that we're going to launch higher. I think it's going to be certain sectors are going to do it, and I'm certainly open to those moves within sectors. But I think if we consolidate here a little bit, then we've got a chance to go higher. But I do really like the strength going on in the Dow stocks right now, up 60 basis points. One note from we put a whole bunch of names that I was looking at in the weekend newsletter, but the major theme that I see is a couple things. Is the short-term bond ETFs. These are names that you may or may not be familiar with: BIL, SHY, Mint, SHV, BSV. They gathered $3.3 billion in assets last week. And if you couple that with the week prior, that was $1 billion of assets. And the breadth is very strong. It's not just one ETF that's doing it. It's 4 ETFs. So people are really taking some money out of the market. And we'll see how long this lasts. And that was one of the themes. And then I also saw emerging markets, which I'm not going to cover in this video. But for now, value is outperforming growth. That's it for today's mid-cap video. Thanks for watching.